Welcome to Totally Talent Podcast by HR.com, your go-to source for all things talent. Whether you're looking for expert insights on high-volume hiring, the latest trends in recruitment technology, or strategies for building a winning team, we've got you covered. Join us for each episode as we dive deep into the challenges and opportunities shaping the talent landscape today. Let's get started.
Hey friends, welcome to another edition of Totally Talent. My name is Mike Wood. I am your host. I am a TA analyst and executive community leader here at HR.com. And I'm thrilled today to be joined by Lauren Levine, who is from Wisdom Data. Lauren, do you just want to introduce yourself to our audience?
Absolute pleasure. So I'm Lauren Levine. I'm the strategy and partnerships lead here at Wisdom. So focused on how we can develop the product in a way that makes it as useful and as interesting as possible. Spend a lot of time on our data, huge data nerd, absolutely love it. And then outside of work, big hockey player, unfortunately one-armed at the moment. That's a little bit about
I know. Tell people what happened. If they can't see, you got to hold up the cast.
I've got a fun plaster situation. I fractured my wrist playing hockey, tripped over, not even anything cool. I wasn't doing some sort of long mazy run. I just fell over my own feet and now have a big dramatic plaster cast to get in the way of everything.
Well, I think it's great that you play hockey, especially with the accent. I don't think I've ever heard anybody with your accent play hockey before, but that's fantastic.
In case your listeners couldn't tell, I'm very British.
Yes.
Much from London, very British. There's a bit of a giveaway.
Yeah. So let's talk about Wisdom. So, I know that. Let's just basically, what do you guys do? If you could just give me a quick elevator pitch.
Yeah. So high level, Wisdom is a tool to tell you what the market thinks of your company, your competitors, and the world of work. And what that means kind of concretely is it's a dashboard of proprietary survey data on what different target groups want from work, how they perceive your employer brand, what they're thinking of different pieces of your content, what they think of your competitors who might be taking talent away, and allows you to build a kind of full talent attraction strategy using our data. Okay.
Awesome. So, we all love data, but we're all drowning in data. And I know especially a lot of hiring teams are drowning in data. And not all data is useful. So, how does Wisdom Data cut through the noise and help recruiters surface insights that actually drive better hiring decisions?
Great question. So I've become a big data nerd and data snob. The first thing is that it's good data. So a lot of data tools out there use scrape data. And I feel like we all know this. Everyone is really nice and really positive and upbeat on LinkedIn. Everyone is really grizzly on Glassdoor. And there's sort of no in between. But actually, if you think about that, only to be in the top 1% of posters on LinkedIn, you only need to post once a week. So when you're looking at that data, what you're really looking at is if you imagine, say, a school year of 100, you're looking at the one person who happens to post on LinkedIn. So a lot of the data out there is really kind of poor quality and not actually useful. Why would you listen to that one person in a room of 100? And so what Wisdom does is we try to get insights from the entire 100, the entire school year, entire classroom, whatever analogy you want to use, to make sure that you're not just getting the slightly skewed sample who happen to engage on different social media platforms. So we survey the entire general working population. We make sure our data is completely representative. It's all paid for. It's all survey data. So it's really, really high quality. So I think that's one thing. The second is that kind of without context, data isn't helpful. Again, I could tell you oh yeah, our engagement's up 10 times versus last year. We don't know if that's because of a whole bunch of AI bots or because people happen to be posting more because we're in the middle of a pandemic. The world is changing fast. And so without context, it's really hard to make sense of your numbers and make sense of what this data means unless you have some good benchmarks. So we allow you to see where you sit relative to your industry and relative to the broader market. And the third piece is on what people think. So it's quite difficult to get insight just from what people do, just from seeing what they click or what they comment on. But actually what Wisdom does is we ask people, for example, what they think of different pieces of content, how it changes their perceptions of your employer brand, what it makes them feel. And so it gives you a much deeper understanding of how your content's actually shaping perceptions of your employer brand rather than just what's generating clicks. We can all generate clickbait. We just need to send out a meme.
Yeah.
But if you actually want to know how you change what people think, you need a much better data set. So I think that's where Wisdom's data is useful over a lot of kind of the alternatives on the market, just things like click-through rates, which are much, much more superficial.
Mm-hmm. And it's primarily your career pages, right?
Wisdom's data.
Yes, it's you're looking at your customers' career pages and or is it goes beyond that?
So what's quite cool is we've run kind of A/B tests of a whole range of creative for coming up to 3 years now. So clients have used these A/B tests for everything. So sometimes it's career sites, it's what type of messaging works best, what sort of landing page might resonate most with a particular audience. But we also have people try kind of hero videos, we have them try LinkedIn posts, we have them try different social assets. So you can use whatever you want to generate this insight. And what's quite cool now is that with this sort of library of kind of hundreds now pieces of content, we've uploaded them into an Ask Wisdom feature, which is sort of an AI bot, but actually trained on bespoke EB data, which is quite exciting.
No, that's great. So, like, what's some of the feedback that you've heard from some of your customers about how you've helped them kind of find out how basically the health of their employer brand?
Yeah, so some of it's been what you'd expect. So we had people like Fraser's Group used Wisdom when they were trying to navigate their transformation from Sports Direct to becoming a much more multinational brand. And so they used us to kind of monitor the changes in brand awareness and how that shifted over time. But if as an EB manager, that means you can go to your sort of senior leadership team and say, we're actually affecting this change and we have the numbers to back it up. For someone like McCain, we've used them. They've loved Wisdom. They've used our data. I think one example, it was they were looking to hire manufacturing talent in the northeast of England. And this is kind of McCain's heartland. So they were really keen on attracting this talent. And what we found through Wisdom was that this group was really driven by purpose. But at the time, McCain was seen as someone where you could kind of make friends and have kind of good social life rather than someone where you could really drive an impact. And so using Wisdom's data, they launched this really cool campaign called Meet the Makers. And actually that cut their cost per hire by 60%. So we've seen some really like tangible outcomes in sort of key talent attraction metrics. But there's also been some surprising feedback from customers. So things like one was sort of risk avoidance. So we had one client was about to commit a massive amount of budget to sort of this set of day in the life videos. They did some content to do with Wisdom, and it was like, absolutely not. We should not do this. Kind of their target groups hated it. The content didn't land. And it was like, right, okay. And that was kind of feedback where we couldn't have
don't waste. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like 100,000 like saved. Like, okay, thank goodness we spotted that one early.
Yeah. Do not waste your money. Do not waste your ad money on this campaign.
That one. Don't do this one. Exactly.
Everybody hates it.
No, this one's bad.
So,
and actually, to be fair, I'm really not I'm quite a conflict avoidant person. I don't want to argue. And what I think one of the nicer bits of feedback that we had was about how Wisdom sort of allows everyone to get behind one direction. You finally get kind of clear data about what you should be doing and what does land. And so it doesn't become this sort of tussle over values. There's just a really clear answer about what people like and what people don't. And that can make people's lives easier in their day to day.
Yeah, just like anything, if you get actual feedback into why something logically isn't going to go well, like show me the data, show me that it's not going to go well. Like if you showed me all that stuff, okay. If I like this employer brand video idea, campaign, whatever, it was a great idea, but it's not going to fly. And so it's going to end up like wasting your money, and then you're going to have to talk to your CEO about why you wasted the money.
Exactly. And I think because it can be so heated, right? Your employer brand is who you are as a business. And people obviously really, really care about that. So it's not surprising that you can end up really kind of betting into, oh no, but I think we are this. Whereas actually like, taking a step back, we've got some data, we've got some numbers, we can sort of navigate our way without having to do this big, what's the soul of the company sort of thing.
Yeah, I think, a lot of job seekers out there, the market is tough right now, but if you're evaluating a company against another company and the salary is about the same, you want to go to a place that's going to treat you better. Just like
Exactly.
the people are easy to work with and whatever. So your employer brand still matters. Like Glassdoor is still a huge way that I find out what it's really like working at a company from the actual people that work there. Now, I do want to get into a little bit of the tech. So I know that HR tech stacks are notoriously fragmented, but how does Wisdom kind of integrate with the existing ATS CRM systems out there?
So what we've done is we've tried to keep our data quite isolated and quite separate. So we don't collect any personal data. It's all survey data. So we don't integrate that much with your existing tech stack. But what we can do is it means you don't have to go through a whole bunch of procurement or compliance because we're not collecting any personal data. You can just log on. It's super simple and super easy to find. And the idea is it's the sort of first place you go when you're looking for data about talent attraction, which you can then feed into your approach on the other platforms.
Yeah, it's an audit of how people are responding to your employer efforts, and I think, if you're going to try to improve something, you got to find out where you are, to start off with. I know that one of the biggest concerns in like AI driven hiring is bias. But how does bias and anti bias kind of filter into what you guys do at Wisdom?
Yeah, so we did a really interesting series on this actually called Unconventional Wisdom, where we were looking at sort of where traditional wisdom
That's clever. I like that.
I was pleased with that. Basically, say answers you get out of ChatGPT just don't work. So if you go into ChatGPT now and you type in like, is there a north-south divide in employer brand? This is kind of a silly example, but there are more serious ones. It'll give you a whole spiel on, say, the UK, how the north of England is completely different from the south, and it has completely different preferences, and it's a whole different world. And that's because an LLM is trained on online scraping. That's something that you can kind of talk about, but you look at the data, and obviously there's nothing there. And I think where we've sort of avoided the risks of AI bias is it's all trained on our representative survey data. We have a closed data set, which is only using these paid for representative survey responses. So there is no kind of way for bias to sort of creep in. And I think there's been, I don't know, some really interesting cases where we've seen this come through. So one example is with Gen Z. Everyone's always like, oh, if you want to attract Gen Z, make your TikToks, make your reels. And actually what we found is that if you split the data by salary, yeah, Gen Z under sort of like 30K, TikTok's the most common platform. You look beyond that and people spend much more time on LinkedIn. So that's an example of where like an AI bot or an AI bias will creep through, but because we have our closed data set, it's not going to infiltrate Wisdom's answers.
Oh, that's great. All right, so I got to ask you, if you had a crystal ball that could predict one thing in hiring in the future, like what do you think? Like, if we were to have this conversation a year from now, what do you think is going to be new in the face?
I mean, even more than a year from now, what I would love to know is what's going to happen with the COVID generations. I think what you've seen is these mini trends where everyone at different points in development has been hugely impacted by, say, the pandemic. And that's going to come through with all of these sort of bubbles of volatility in hiring and talent attraction for early talent. So I would love to see how that plays out and how people learn to adapt and build a much more reactive TA strategy, given that you're going to see all of these changes because people experience COVID. Experience COVID at say 8 is very different to experiencing it at 11 to experiencing it at 14. So as those generations come into the workforce, you'll see really rapid changes, I think, in early talent. So I'd love to see how talent attraction teams adapt for that.
So one of the things I was thinking as you were saying that is that, you know, it's okay to have like insights and great. Like I have like things that can like tools that can tell me, I could type into Chat GPT, analyze this or whatever, but there's no real like context. And it's just a surface level thing. So I think, what's going to happen, down the line is that you're going to get more targeted data back. You're going to get more actionable insights, things that you can actually, some tips to actually roll with instead of just your site's not doing that well. Well, show me some ways I can prove it.
And show me who, because it might not matter if your site's doing badly at a group you're not interested in or trying to hire, but you need to be able to drill down into like, okay, but the audiences I'm actually interested in, what's changing for them? What's happening there?
And the work culture right now in terms of not being able to get a job if you're right out of school, or hiring is down, or you hear all these stories about companies that are just laying people off left and right, or I think the actual value prop that employers can create for themselves in terms of like, do you actually treat your people like humans, or are they just like filling a seat? So I think that's going to be even more valuable in the future, especially how you appear online, because there's just so much out there that isn't great.
How do you think the rise of kind of GPTs and sort of going to AI first when people are looking for jobs, how do you think that, what have you seen as ways that shifted people's sort of talent attraction strategy?
You go to LinkedIn and you apply to a job, and there's already 3,000 people that have applied.
Mm-hmm.
So like, are you just a cog in the machine, or do they actually care about you as a candidate? So is the company going to be, just reaching out to you for filling a butt in the seat, or do they show you that they care about you as a person and they actually want you? So I think there's this divide between, this influx of candidates that are just applying to jobs, and actually the company is looking for the right person. Like there's still this disconnect there in the AI world. So we need to show candidates that we actually care about them. So you can't just automate everything. That's my whole stance on everything.
Who have you seen do that really well?
So it works. It obviously works better on a smaller scale. So like if you're hiring for a warehouse and you're hiring for, these high volume jobs, you may not need to have that personal touch. People just, you're high volume, so you're going to have people coming in and out. What really matters is, and the question I'm kind of struggling with is, do companies actually want to hire and grow someone anymore? And so, is it just, they're looking for a skill set, or do they actually want to develop you and have you work at the company for 10 years or something like that?
And how do you build that? Because I think it's one of those things where for the individual role, maybe it does make sense to just hire for skills. And sort of for each individual, you make the choice to hire for skills. But actually what you end up is falling apart on that kind of cultural level of like, because you made all of these sort of short-term decisions where, okay, but just in this instance, it's easier to hire for skills. Just in this instance, it's easier to hire for skills. Eventually your culture falls apart. Because you have taken that really short term, we're not going to invest, and then your culture goes kaput, and then the company as a whole is way less productive.
For example, like let's take like data scientists, so that's a role that's people been hiring about for the last, I don't know, 6 years or something. It's been a huge role. But I've seen companies where they've hired people that are very strong data scientists, but they don't have the social skills that can help contribute to the culture. And so now you have this island of data scientists, and you have the regular culture, and it just never integrates. So you need to find a way to develop these data scientists so they have the soft skills. You still need to develop that, or take the people that have the soft skills and develop the hard skills. So there's still some skill development that needs to happen.
It's quite a cool bit we have actually in Wisdom. So we have one kind of bring it back gradually. But we have one that I'm so off track that I have to bring myself back. But
hey, it's okay. We'll talk about anything here.
We have a really cool part of the tool where you can see what sort of type of person different people are when they show up to work. I use someone who shows up to work and you're looking to make friends. I use someone who shows up and you're looking to make an impact. I use someone who shows up and you basically just want your paycheck. Or I use someone who shows up and you're like, I really want to learn. And then what's cool is we can see how our different companies perceive. So we see is your company seen as somewhere you can make an impact? And then you can kind of go back internally and be like, well, what actually are we? Are we somewhere where people primarily make friends? And you've got these kind of 3 data points where you're like, what do people value? How are we seen? And what are we internally? And sort of the dream is that all of those 3 things align. But it's quite cool because you can see over time, are you shifting your external brand perception to how it feels internally? Because obviously the risk is, if your external brand perception is completely different to how people actually experience internally, people leave, you get really high churn, your culture goes kaput. But I think it's just such an exciting tool because it lets you also like find out what do people who are looking for say you think, right, we're a really impact driven company. You can develop your talent attraction strategy by being like, okay, what do these impact driven people want? What do they look for at work? And you can segment all our data by that, which as a data nerd, I think is pretty cool.
Being a data nerd is a cool thing nowadays. So it's a good superpower for you to have. I strongly support your journey in data. So what are you working on now in Wisdom? Like anything, you want to make sure that our listeners hear about, or, what's new in your world?
We're launching something really cool. So we're launching our this Ask Wisdom feature, which will basically be a sort of ChatGPT style interface, but not trained on nonsense and trained on employer brand data, employer brand content. Like it's not going to give you hallucinations. It's actually trained on really good data. Super easy to use. So you can just go and be like, okay, I need a talent attraction strategy for software engineers in Canada. And bash, there you go. You've got your whole plan. Or like, I want a campaign calendar. Or tell me what sort of content lands best with front of house roles? And it will just generate those answers as easily as ChatGPT, but without coming from nonsense, coming from this super good data. So I think that's really, really cool.
Hey, I think you have your new tagline: wisdom data, not trained on nonsense.
It might be on. Or it's not for the wisdom LinkedIn. I'm going to go.
Yeah, well,
I apologize. I'm unlucky. This is what we're doing.
Well, I wanted to thank you for joining me on Totally Talent, and I hope that we see more from Wisdom in the U.S. and even abroad if I'm ever over abroad at some point. But if people are looking for more information about Wisdom, like where can they find you?
And so our website's wisdomdata.io, and we're also obviously on LinkedIn and just Wisdom. And I'm Laura Levine, so feel free to reach out to me or any of our team.
Great. Well, thank you, Lauren, for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Mike. Absolute pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in to the Totally Talent podcast by HR.com. We hope you find today's episode insightful and inspiring. Don't forget to explore more episodes and discover valuable resources at hr.com/podcasts, where you can listen to all of our podcasts. Until next time, keep leading with purpose and making a difference in the world of talent.